By lying over his friendship with Ronnie Kray, Boothby had gambled and won. But it was a gamble too far, for the cover-up which protected him would protect the Krays too. The first victims of the cover-up were the policemen investigating the Krays. After the Mirror story was published, the Metropolitan Police Chief, Sir Joseph Simpson, furious at the leak, issued a statement denying it. It was a devastating blow to his officers. The Kray investigation carried on, but with no support from the top.
I was called to the yard to see the then commander of the CID, Commander Millen, and he was very disparaging about the success of the squad, said that he thought, without any question, that it should be wound down.
Up against time pressure, Reed's team arrested the Krays and Teddy Smith on protection racket charges, after Smith had smashed up a West End club the Krays were trying to muscle in on. Boothby campaigned for his friends in the House of Lords, demanding to know how long they'd be detained before the trial. His fellow peers were appalled at Boothby's intervention. So too were the police.
I didn't need that at the time. What I needed was less publicity of that kind and a more positive publicity about the fact that these were two utter villains and that we wanted to get them convicted, instead of a lord that had been a very, very popular man, of course, and bearing that in mind and the sway that he might have with people in various quarters. It was wrong, in my view, that he should stand up and show himself to be a friend of, or at least have some relation with, two villains like that.
The Krays and Teddy Smith were acquitted. As they walked free from the Old Bailey, Boothby penned a letter of congratulation to Ronnie. "To some extent I share in your triumph," he wrote. The twins were all sweetness.
How much has this trial cost you?
It's cost us roughly £8,000.
And how do you feel about that?
I don't suppose anyone likes the idea of spending that money for no reason at all, you know.
Does it leave you broke, or how does it leave you?
It doesn't leave us broke, but at the same time it's a lot of money to have to pay out when money's innocent, you know.
What are you going to do now that it's all over?
Well, I'd like to go abroad for a short while, and then I'd like to be left alone.
Well, of course, they went back to the East End like heroes. I mean, people were lining the streets, they were decorated, there were street parties, that kind of thing. It was an incredible situation. And what they were saying to their followers and to the public, well, this is us. We told you that we could walk on water. We told you that the police were impotent to prosecute us. We told you that we got good, powerful, influential friends like Boothby and like Driberg, and that they would support us.
For the next 3 years, the Krays were free to act as they liked. They ran their protection rackets unchallenged and ended up committing cold-blooded murder in full public view.
They went off like rockets then, and they enjoyed a period of time when they were totally invincible. They murdered Jack the Hat McVitie, they murdered Cornell, and nothing was being done about it all the time.
The police wouldn't go for them. The politicians wouldn't go for them, the press wouldn't go for them, nobody would.
I think we laid off the Krays after that, if I remember rightly. In other words, they were able to get away with a lot of things that would have otherwise been big stories in the newspapers. The feeling was, oh, Krays, Boothby, leave it alone, have nothing to do with it. Dodgy, dangerous, £40,000, no thank you.
Boothby's friendship with Ronnie Kray grew ever closer. On New Year's Eve, 1965, Boothby wrote to thank him for all the Christmas cards from your family and also the lovely Corona cigars. All good wishes for 1966. Yours ever, Bob B. And, as always, there were the young men.
I was in a nightclub called the El Morocco in Gerrard Street, and the twins were in there, accompanied by Boothby, wearing one of his ridiculous bow ties. And they had a couple of young boys with them on the table, sitting at the table, and after a while Boothby got up to leave. One of the boys went with him, and they went out the door into the street, and about 2 minutes later I heard Boothby's voice, Ronnie, come out here a minute." He had a very nice voice, did Mr. Boothby. And Ronnie's got up and got out, and Billy Gentry, the manager, went with him. And apparently the young boy who'd gone out with Lord Boothby didn't want to go home with him. And Ronnie said to him, "You will go home with Mr. Boothby. You will do anything Mr. Boothby wants, or I will hurt you badly." So, of course, the kid went home with Mr. Boothby, didn't he?
There were orgies too. Ronnie Kray had a flat in Cedar Court in East London, adorned with Eastern tapestries and a 3-foot-high ebony elephant with ivory tusks. There was a giant 4-poster bed surrounded by mirrors. The full details of the Cedar Court orgies have remained hidden till now. But this unpublished manuscript, written by Ronnie Hart, a cousin of the Krays who later gave evidence against them, gives for the first time an insider's account. Hart wrote, "Lord Boothby was among the people who attended, and on one occasion Ronnie swapped boys with him." Kray expected favours from Boothby in return. In one bizarre incident, Boothby's cousin, Peter Carey, was phoned by a friend of Boothby's to ask if he could help Ronnie Kray.
This is my father, who was a very conventional naval officer, retired naval officer then. Why? Who wants to speak to him? Oh, Ronnie Kray wants to speak to him. Why? Well, he's got a new project for either gun running or drug running in the Mediterranean. And Peter, of course, was captain of coastal forces, so he must know all about MTBs. He wondered whether Peter would like to help him. Well, my father was not remotely amused by this.
But the dangerous liaisons between high life and low life would not last much longer. As the Krays sank into the increasing violence which would end in murder, Boothby began to distance himself. He told his lover, Leslie Holt, that if he didn't stop burgling, it would be the end of their friendship.
He wanted him to give it up. He really did want him to give it up. He said he had no need for it, but he wouldn't. He just enjoyed it.
And now that introduction which Holt had made backfired on him.
I think Leslie sort of knew he'd blown it with Lord Boothby, really, and I think he deeply regretted that. He sort of hinted